I have requested the Sangeeta to use the bell in case of I exceed the time. Now I believe skill is too much intertwined with lives of people. If you impart skills, it improves lives, and that is the focus on which I want to really take you through a few slides. Apparel and textile happen to be the largest employer. Nearly 60 million people are already employed, and we have estimated that it will add another 12 million in the last 2 to 3 years. So after agriculture, this is the largest sector. So this is a good case study for you to really look at some of the issues which we are looking at. Mr. Kamalnath's book, which was more or less the same time my book came out on Indian Design Age, I wanted to just focus on two issues in this slides. One is that earlier the parents felt that, okay, I must actually save everything and my children should have a better life. Now the people who live, they want a better life now. Life should get better for me and also my children. So the life has changed. Aspirational group of people have already become the largest group of people in India. And education has to understand this new reality. The other is, at an individual level, everybody is innovative in India. But when it comes to a societal innovation, it does not happen. Commonwealth Games is a very good example. I need not go into that. Every day screaming headlines are there. If it was a collective innovation was possible, it would have happened. Something then pulls the gravity down. Gravity of something else pulls us down from achieving societal innovation. Now I think there are two issues which are now faced by the country. One, to innovate the minds of people, make it collectively societal innovation. To the other part is to have skills for the hands of people so that they can realize the ideas created by the minds. Now these are two different issues, but both are very critical in India, because we seem to have a lot of ideas but very little products on the shelves of the world compared to Korea or Italy, which are much smaller countries, but they have very world-beating brands of products from their countries. Similarly, we said that we have 1.2 billion population, but when you look at the skilled workforce of 12.8 million people join every year, you have only 3% of that having any training. And I will show you some of the staggering issues. So 1/3 of the population in the country is youth, as you already know, and they can be actually the partners to the progress and development. And by 2020, we would have probably exceeded all the youth put together of these countries, Brazil, China, Germany, US. And the average Indian age is at the moment 24, and it would be probably 29 at 2020, which is really very important for us to understand that by 2050, when the sweet spot of Indian population will reach, what will the current people and what will be their training levels, and the people who are joining between 2010 to 2030, what would be the kind of training imperatives they are looking at. And this is something which we need to flag in. As I said, the median age of some of the countries, Tokyo, for example, Japan, the main study of Bunkai University today is how to make clothes for the age 50-plus-year-old people, because it has become what is called an aged society. Super aged society, it will become 20% of the population reaches above 60, and currently they are 14%. So the populations of some of these countries are already graying or already old, whereas we have this great advantage, which we call as demographic bulge or dividend, and that is where the issue of training becomes critical, as only 5% of the Indian labor force in the age group of 20 to 24 has obtained any kind of vocational skills, and this is a staggering situation. The other part is the urban poverty. Now look at Dharavi in Mumbai, or look at the slums around many of the places, any city in India. The slums create the biggest issue in terms of urban poverty, and we have with over 575 million people, India will have 41% of its population living in cities and towns by 2030, from the present level of just 286 million. And I have also referred in my book this, because there is a chapter called India, the Design and the City, in which I have referred to and projected that India is slated to have 55% of its population living in urban centers by 2050 against 30% now. And now India's urban population is rising, and where do you find the employment? Where do they live? Whereas the employment generation activities of manufacturing especially are moving out of the cities. They have to, because it has become too expensive. Gurgaon cannot just afford to pay the kind of wages for the laborers in Gurgaon, nor the space rentals. Simply it has gone out of hand. So what do? Go past manager. And where do the people need to come from, they cannot even live in Manesar because there are no dormitories. So where do they live? They live in slums. And they create, the whole socio-economic system keeps, having its own problems. So India's urban population is increasing at a faster rate than the population. There are 80 million poor people living in the cities and towns of India, and increasing slum population, over 61.8 million people living in slums. Now, if you look at Dharavi, for example, I had the occasion to visit as director of NID. We were trying to create a Made in Dharavi label with a design intervention. And I have found that everybody was in pottery or in leather or creating leather belts and bags and beautiful products. And really speaking, they were getting very, very little in terms of the wages and the kind of conditions on which they used to work. If you, stand up, your head will be chopped off by the fans. Ceilings are so small, you have to always crawl and sit in those places in Dharavi if you have visited. It's just mind-blowing to tell how people are working in India and making their livelihood. And when we talk about the conditions of this people who are to be employed, of the skills, it leaves much to be desired. Luckily, the 11th plan has placed a lot of focus on education training, and we have expected the educational allocations to go up from 7.7% to 20%, representing nearly 6% of the GDP. And there is a national council under the chairmanship of Prime Minister, and there is a skill mission which was introduced in 2007. Dilip Chenoy was supposed to speak. I don't know whether he has come in. He is now heading the Skill Development Corporation, who was earlier with CM earlier. And DGET has really placed a lot of emphasis on assessment and skill development. Now, it is not enough just to be saying that people didn't get education. Did they get the technical education to actually get an employment? That is the issue. Literacy, numerical literacy, or the other kind of literacy where you can write something, to technical literacy. This is a big, trajectory, and that becomes a very important issue when you look at employment. I have already said that only 2% or to 3% of the people have received any kind of professional training, and 8% of the people have received some kind of training from, just like I was told by a person that the steam press in garment factory, the person who was teaching others always kept his foot on the pedal, and the steam went on going. By the time the garment needed steam, there was no steam left. But everybody who was taught by him continued to repeat the same. So those are the kind of training you receive at that 8 to 10%. That is, people, the blind lead the blind kind of situation in many cases. And I'm not telling all of them are like that, but there is a great amount of trouble in those kind of learning. If you compare with the developing economies, it's just mind-blowing. Comparison with other economies, Japan has 68% of people who are, vocationally trained. Germany 75%, UK 80%, and Korea 90%, against India's 2% skill training. For a country of this dimension, no wonder Naxalism, insurgency, and issues are growing in a country, simply because of this reason. We have not given them how to catch fish. We keep on giving them, telling that, aap le lo, Nariga se fish le lo, khao aajkal. But they are not teaching them how to use a bait or how to use a hood singer to catch fish. Now, skills for livelihood and skills for employment are very, very different issues. Livelihood, self-employment, and employment in a factory or a industrial environment requires a complete transformation. The garment proprietors tell me, in a large factory, a group of people who are working, if a foreign visitor enters, they all stop work and look at them till they go out. You go to Taiwan or China, they will not raise their head. Or if there is a festival, the entire group of people who came from the village take leave and disappear. The entire production is left. So now, that is the problem in employability in an industrial environment and finding some employment or some kind of livelihood. This is a big issue when we really look at the challenges. You need to have both hands-on and minds-on. And the focus on flexibility, innovation, out-of-box thinking, innovation, and innovating minds and skilling hands together, moving India forward in these issues. All the time we have been just dismissing the word mindset. But actually it is a mindsets and skill sets. Now, do you have the adequate mindsets to tackle the challenging opportunities ahead? Do you have the skill sets to look at the opportunities, emerging? And there, probably the focus of this discussion in the morning is the technological democracy, which is improving the access of education in both ways. And access, equity, and innovation, therefore, form the principles on which we are looking at today's skill education. Skills have to be demonstrated. Make no mistake about it. Now, if you have to demonstrate a skill, whether it's photography, cycling, swimming, you also need to measure and evaluate whether the skill is placed or not. Today's environment, the ability to evaluate and measure in the large-scale measurement challenge